All right, so today we are going to talk about the last big idea of this course, which is the idea of function notation. We brought this up a little bit in our graphing, things like this. So get yourself ready for notes, and if you are confused about anything from sequences or earlier in the course, please make sure that you're letting me know either on Zoom, in class, in email, however it is easiest for you to get in touch with me. So let's get yourself ready for notes, and we're going to get started talking about function notation. So you've got a worksheet for today, and as a reminder, I've got the definition of function over here just to help us remember. It's an equation with two variables whose graph passes the vertical line test. The idea is that if you can draw any vertical line through the graph, and it'll only cross once. Now, one of the major ways to use function notation is to deal with equations like this. So function notation looks like two letters, one on the outside, one in parentheses. And what this tells us is that it's a function and what the variable is. So here this says, I'm a function that uses the variable x. So given the following functions, find f of -2. And that's how we would read this. We say f of -2. So function with -2 in it. So one thing I like to think about is like f of -2, if I wrote that directly below here, this means x equals -2. And if we change it on one side, we want to change it on the other. So then still 3, and then the other x is also going to become -2. And then from there, all you need to do is evaluate. Follow your order of operations. So exponents first, -2 squared is 4 plus 7, which would be 12 plus 7, which is 19. Once you've finished evaluating, that's it, you're done. So this says that f of -2 is equal to 19. Notice how I'm not changing this side, because that's what I want. This is what I want by itself at the end. If you don't have f of -2 at the end, right here, you've done something wrong. It's not a multiplication problem. It's the name of the function. I'll repeat, it is not multiplication. It is the name of the function. Now, you're going to have a lot of different functions. So here, we've got f of x is equal to the square root of 14 minus x. We're still looking for f of -2, so we're going to change our x to -2 in both places. So f of -2 in this case is the square root of 14 minus -2. And again, once we plug in, we're just going to evaluate. 14 plus -2, the two negatives are going to simplify to the square root of 14 plus 2. 14 plus 2 is 16. The square root of 16 is 4. Now that we finished evaluating, we are done. So in this case, with this new function, f of -2 is 4. Last example involves absolute value. Remember, that just turns everything positive. Here, we've got two places where x is. That's all right. We just want to change both. So we've got one there, one there. So we'll say f of -2 is equal to the absolute value of 6 minus 3 times -2 over -2. So you want to replace it in both places. Now that we've plugged it in, we're just going to evaluate. 6 minus 3 times -2, do the multiplication first. So that's 3 times -2 is -6. Again, that becomes a plus 6. So f of -2 is equal to absolute value of positive 12 over -2, which is the absolute value of -6, which is positive 6. Now, usually functions start with f, but it could be any letter. So this is g of x. That's just fine. You can have whatever letter makes the most sense for you. And one thing this is helpful about is that you can imagine if we just only called them f, like this, it's going to start getting confusing. But you could have f, you could have g, you could have h. You just need to, that just tells you, oh, we're going to look at this function. Now we're going to look at a new one. And the different letter tells you that it's a different function. So in number 2, g of x is equal to 2x squared minus a half. Find x such that g of x is equal to 0. So in this case, what this says is that g of x here is getting replaced with 0. So I'm replacing the whole thing with 0, and the other side doesn't have a g of x on it, so we leave it as is. So then we're just solving this equation. Since it says find x, x is the thing I want. Remember how here it said find f of negative 2? So we found f of negative 2. Here it says find x, so get x by itself. I'm going to start by adding 1/2 to both sides. 0 plus a half is 1/2 is equal to 2x squared. Divide by 2, which is the same as multiplying by a half, multiplying by that reciprocal. 1/2 times a half is 1/4 equals x squared. We get rid of the squared by using the square root. And remember, it's plus or minus. So square root of 1 is 1. Square root of 4 is 2. Plus or minus 1/2 is equal to x. And now that x is by itself, we finished our problem. If you have questions about anything that you see on the function notation worksheet, please be in touch on Google Classroom or on Zoom.